Hey guys, welcome to Boxing Squared for boxing news and views from around the internet. Filip Hrgovic says he is more than willing to put the IBF mandatory slot up for grabs and face Joseph Parker on March the 8th in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia, on the Anthony Joshua vs Francis Ngannou card. That card yet to be announced, but a fight with Parker and Hrgovic would be a big co-main event. So Parker and his management have in recent days mentioned Hrgovic as a possible target among a number of names, and Hrgovic has now said, yep, I will take that fight. So as you can see on screen, this is Mike Coppinger, his tweet on the situation with a clip. I will play the audio.
I heard that Joseph Parker want to fight me in the March on Joshua Ngannou undercard. So I'm very happy to hear that. I'm ready. I accept your offer, Joe. Let's do it. Let's go, baby. Let's get down to business. See you soon.
So Hrgovic there, ready and willing to take on Joseph Parker. And let's face it, both these guys are active at the moment. They're in shape. And Parker, he didn't take a lot of damage against Deontay Wilder. And so too, Filip Hrgovic took basically nothing against Mark Demori in what was basically a joke fight. So Filip Hrgovic and Joseph Parker, yes, please, sign me up. Filip Hrgovic is one of these guys that has been meandering along, basically apart from the Zhang Zhilei fight a year or two ago, and has basically been facing puddings for the most part. He's been undermatched, and also he's been relatively inactive. Not as active as he should have been for a career that is now entering, its seventh year, and he's, 17 fights in. So there is a case to say that if this fight gets made, is Filip Hrgovic underdone heading into this one? Because Joseph Parker is a very tough fight for him. We saw Parker's got a lot left in that Wilder fight, and he would be boxing and moving, and he's not just some sort of stiff that's going to stand there right in front of him. Hrgovic, apart from the Zhang fight, hasn't had a lot of good tough rounds in the division. So you could argue with, and especially because he's tried to mold himself, or been molded into effectively a guy who's a puncher trying to knock guys out. He's gone away from some of those amateur skills that served him so well, took him to bronze at the Rio Olympics, and obviously a decorated amateur. And actually, there would be a little bit of history as well to, revenge that Joseph Parker would be seeking should this fight be made. These guys fought back all the way back in 2010 with Filip Hrgovic getting the win. A lot of people forget that Joseph Parker was at one time a pair of the likes of Tony Yoka and Filip Hrgovic. He turned pro really young. Was he 18, 19 years old? He's been on the scene for some considerable time. And so too now for Hrgovic, and this would represent a step up in opposition from the last fight. And just in general, it would be a very, very tough fight for Hrgovic. And based on what we've seen so far, he would need to make some adjustments to prepare for Joseph Parker. He couldn't sort of just stand there, not moving his head and expecting just to be knocking Joseph Parker out. Because Parker won't be there. He will be boxing and moving that head, trying to stay out of harm's way while trying to outwork Filip Hrgovic. But it should be said as well, that fight with Zhang Zhilei, where Hrgovic got the win, it was a very close fight. Some people say that Zhang should have got the decision. But regardless of that, it was a close competitive fight. Filip Hrgovic was in that fight. Zhang was gassing later in that fight. Hrgovic picked up a lot of the later rounds. And he was matching it with Zhang Zhilei. He did get dropped in that one, but he took the power. So I think this would be a case, if they make this fight, Joseph Parker would need to outbox Filip Hrgovic over 12 rounds. And as we've seen against a big puncher in Deontay Wilder, and previously many times before, that's sort of Parker's bread and butter. So he would look to be the boxer puncher, where Filip Hrgovic, I'm sure, would be looking to take lumps out of Parker and try to really put that right hand to good effect and take him out. I think Hrgovic would have to try to utilize the height and the reach, which he hasn't done so much in some of his recent fights, where it's felt more like target practice and he's just going after guys to knock them out as opposed to breaking them down and taking them out. So he would absolutely have to try to break down Parker over rounds, using the jab, which when he uses it to good effect is a good weapon. And he needs to not be so right hand happy, working some other punches, the left hook, the uppercut. As an amateur, those were also good punches for him, not just the right hand. But if they make this fight, yeah, that's a really good fight to make. The fact that it's starting to get a little bit of traction in the fighters themselves. I mean, if the Saudis come in, make an offer, everyone's happy with it, it gets done. The money is there. They're throwing money at these cards, these events, and it's leading to good fights. So if it was to be made, and there's something on the line here, the mandatory position Hrgovic holds, Parker would be going for it. And let's face it, if a title is stripped from the winner of the undisputed fight, potentially, that could happen, then it could be for the full title. Or at the very least, the winner, if it was Parker, for example, would pick up that mandatory slot and be waiting for a title shot. Also to Hrgovic, who holds it at the moment. He would just continue to maintain it. But at the moment, with the Saudi money in play, these guys, I think these contenders, they've got to say yes. A lot of these guys, and I mentioned in the video on Patreon, guys like Andy Ruiz Jr. need to go, okay, maybe my worth's not $20 million anymore, but still getting several $1 million for a fight in Saudi Arabia. That could be something they should be saying yes to every single time. Hrgovic hasn't really got paid yet in his career, so this would be a huge step up in terms of what's on the line for him, not only in terms of the legacy of his career, getting a signature win, but getting paid too, which he hasn't really cashed in so far. What do you make of this? If they could make this fight, I mean, I'm hoping so. Yes, please. Drop a comment, loud and often. Hit like, hit subscribe, follow me on Twitter. Boxing_squared.